went back and looked at the tape of the game Saturday. What did you guys like the most about the game?
Against Arkansas, you're referring to.
Right.
You know, we didn't play great offensively the other night, and we've been so good throughout the year. You know, it was good to see us defensively come together, particularly in the second half. You know, we were able to string together a number of possessions to get stops. And obviously, any road win in any league, but in this league in particular, it's hard to do in a hostile environment. It was tremendous to see these guys come together towards the end of the game defensively.
What was the key there defensively? What were they doing differently, I guess?
I think we were connected. You know, as the season goes on, you start to become more confident defensively and offensively. I think our offense was a little bit ahead of our defense this season, but you're starting to see signs of our defense really coming along. And I think the other night at Arkansas was a great example of what we could be defensively. We were connected, we communicated, we knew the rotations, the assignments. It was a good game for us.
What did you see specifically from Ugo? Being in the middle of all that, I guess.
I think, you know, for people who have not seen him live, you know, you see him on TV, you obviously know he's a 7-footer, but when you see him live, he's one of the biggest human beings in the league. I mean, the way he can move for his size defensively and pick and roll is unbelievable. So when you have a guy with that size and that type of agility defensively, it gives everyone on the floor courage that we can accomplish this rotation. So he's been huge. He's been huge for us.
What went into that decision in the second half to move Reed to point guard, and kind of what did you all like out of what you saw?
I think we had a flow. You know, there was a flow going. Coach Cal's really good with that. He's got a feel for the game. He saw a few things that were going really well for us. Reed was able to get to the rim a number of times in critical moments in the second half. And once you see that once or twice, you just kind of feel like, you know what, let's stick with Reed and see what happens. And he made some great plays down the stretch.
Touch on the defense a second ago, but specifically with you guys' three-point defense. I know sometimes the scout maybe says to give a guy a little more space, and they always seem to make a lot of threes against you guys. But specifically, you know, three-point defense, what have you seen from the team, especially as the plays progress?
You know, it's a great question. You know, you go into games sometimes with a particular player or a team that's not shooting it well. And then on that particular night, they are shooting it well. So for young teams and young guys, it's hard to make that adjustment. I think as the year goes on and we play more games, they're starting to realize, meaning our team, that, you know, on any given night, if a kid hits one or two, although he's not a great shooter overall, that particular night he is. So we've got to treat him that way. And we've been able to make some of those adjustments as the season's gone on.
Is that just something that kind of has to happen in game, you know, guys getting more comfortable with, hey, at the under 12 mark, maybe getting closer to a guy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a kid who hits one or two shots, then in a TV timeout, hey, we got to be aware of this particular player. He's not shooting a high percentage overall, but tonight he's made two of them in the first half. Let's start to close out on him a little bit closer.
Florida will be the first team you guys have met twice this season. What goes into the prep, or what changes maybe when you're seeing a team for the second time?
Yeah, great question. You know, it's when you see them for the second time, obviously we've gotten better, they've gotten better. One of the things that they do, as well as anyone in the country, they're number 2 in the country in offensive rebounding. They've got great size. They do a great job of positioning themselves on the low blocks. So they did a great job the first game, so we anticipate those guys doing a really good job tomorrow night. So we've got to box out, drive guys out, not let them get second and third opportunities. I thought at Florida, their guards did a really good job getting downhill, particularly in the first half. They got some easy baskets in transition, and we've got to get back, sprint all 5 guys back, and not allow those easy baskets.
How have you all grown from the last time seeing Florida?
How have we grown? Well, I think defensively, it seems to be the theme the last week. We're better. We still have a ways to go, but we're certainly better. The Arkansas game gives us confidence. We've added some players, obviously. Ugo's now in more of a rotation today than he was a month ago. We've added Big Z. So we've got more size, we've got more rim protection, and now it's a matter of feeling comfortable defensively and knowing each other's responsibilities.
Especially with that tough rebounding team coming up tomorrow. With Aaron, what can he do to avoid kind of the foul trouble that he's been getting in? Have you seen anything specific that maybe you can work on?
He's gotten better. It's just, playing games and reps. Sometimes we expect a lot of these guys, and we should, but they're young. And when we first played when we first played Florida a month ago, he was still trying to figure out how to play at this level and the speed, and he's starting to catch up now. He's starting to have a better feel for that.
Is he just kind of, in general, kind of an excitable? Is it hard to kind of rein him in, especially with the rebounding over the back?
Well, I think for him, you rather have a guy who's aggressive than a guy who's non-aggressive, and we want him to go rebound the ball. We want him to go to the offensive glass. But obviously going over someone's back is not, beneficial to us. But we can work on those things. The fact that he's trying, the fact that he wants to go rebound the ball is a plus for us.
You mentioned getting Big Z back. You guys are going to do back, but still yet to have a full complement of players. Hopefully Wednesday night will be the case for that. But just what will change about this team? What will this team look like when you finally have everyone available to play?
I think it's a really good question because we haven't had that all year. But I think it's exciting that we have depth. I think other teams around the country, they don't have the depth that we have. And as we're trying to continue through this journey this season, when we get that full roster, it allows us to have different rotation. Maybe it allows us to be more aggressive defensively, knowing that if we have a guy get in foul trouble, we have the depth to sub a guy in. Yeah.
So, during league play, how do you guys kind of sort through all that?
Coach Cal's been great with that from day one because we've not had a full team. So he's been able to play with a small lineup early on in the season where Trey was our 5-man. And then we've adjusted and added Ugo and Aaron. Then we've had 2 7-footers. Then we added Z. So Coach Cal's been unbelievable, and it's a really difficult thing to do throughout the season. We've essentially had, in some ways, 3 different teams: a small ball team, then we had a small ball team with a 7-footer, and now we've got a team with 3 7-footers. How do you play offensively and defensively? Coach Cal's been unbelievable managing that dynamic. It's a really hard thing to do.
Obviously, you guys like to get up and down the floor. The last couple of games, South Carolina, Arkansas, slower pace.
Yeah.
Try to slow you down. Now you're on playing a Florida team that also likes to get up and down the floor. How tough is it for young players to learn to play at different speeds?
That's a great question. It's really hard, particularly in league play, because teams are familiar with your patterns, who you are offensively and defensively. So we want to get up and down. Certain teams don't want us to get up and down, and our young guys they've never gone through that before. Particularly when we played as well as we have in the non-conference, where we were able to score in the 90s. When you get in league play, it becomes a little bit more challenging because people know you a little bit better, and they kind of negate some of the things that you do well, or try to.
Now that Big C's been cleared and you've all had it for a little bit, what would you all learn from that whole process of recruiting an international player? And is that something you all plan to kind of continue leaning into moving forward?
Yeah, really good question. Well, luckily for us in the program, he got cleared. What we learned is that there's talent outside the states. We want to get the best players in the world. And we've got some really, really great players here in the States in America. But if there's 1 or 2 particular players outside the States who can fit who we are as a program and fit Coach Cal's philosophy, who's really, really good, let's pursue them. The game has become a global game. Obviously, the NBA reflects that. And there's no reason, if there's a particular player who can really, really play at a high level, who's a good person, there's no reason for us not to recruit him.
Coach, on the opposite end of that spectrum, you got a guy, Travis Perry, signed to next year. He just moved into the top 10 nationally of all-time high school scorers. What's the significance of that, and what do you think he'll bring to the team next year?
Well, his ability to shoot the ball is unbelievable. He's unassuming when you see him, when you first meet him. But he was down at the City of Palms event, which is about a tournament in Florida about a month ago. And, he lit those guys up. And to have an in-state kid with the resume that he has decide to stay home and play at Kentucky, it's great for both parties. It's great for us as a program. It's great for Travis and his family.
With Z, Cal has kind of said he's a little behind defensively, which is probably to be expected. But where specifically can you work with him to maybe get him up to speed over these next couple of months?
I think defensively, just the concept, how we defend ball screens, getting back in transition. I think Z had such a special moment his first game. It was unreal. There's a made for TV, a movie, that the expectations are so high after that one game that we've forgotten that he had not played all year. So he's still trying to figure out how we defend, offensively, our spacing, and really what he did that night was just instincts. So it was a great moment for him and us, but I think realistically we've got to settle him down a little bit, and get him back to fundamentals and kind of teach him how we defend. And I think once he gets that, he's going to be pretty good.
Coach, we've heard Coach Cal talk a little bit about the last week or so, how practices have mostly been scrimmage-based.
Sure.
To get those competitive juices to kind of stick around with the guys. Kind of talk about what you've kind of seen from the guys these last weeks and the benefits of these types of practices throughout the year.
Yeah, really good question. You know, the scrimmages allow us to add some physicality. You know, obviously when you don't scrimmage and you run offense or you run defense 5-on-0, there's no physicality. You can't measure the size of Florida. You can't measure their ability to rebound the ball. Fortunately for us, we've got 3 7-footers. So when we do scrimmage, we can simulate that size and physicality, which prepares us for the Florida game.
There's been a push on social media already this week, kind of trying to lift Antonio into the All-American conversation. Just what have you seen of his consistency so far this year? Do you think he should be kind of on that level or in that conversation?
Yeah, I think Antonio is one of the best guards in the country. I think people who have watched us and followed us, I mean, in my opinion, obviously I'm biased, he shoots the ball as well as anyone in the country. He's starting to beat people off the dribble and finish at the rim at a high rate. And for anyone who was at the game the other day at Arkansas, he was unbelievable defensively. So he's been able to defend, shoot from the 3, attack the rim. He's been and he's a great teammate. Yeah, to me, he's one of the best guards in the country.
His defense and the floater that he's kind of added to his game, those are 2 things that weren't really there last year. Did those surprise you that he's kind of moved into those roles this year?
Well, I wasn't here last year, so I didn't have anything to gauge. But obviously, watching the film, he was a catch and shoot guy. Anytime you have a catch and shoot guy who can't beat people off the dribble, then they struggle. Well, what he's done over the summer is really developed the floater. So when you chase him off the 3-point line, he doesn't necessarily get all the way to the rim in traffic, but just kind of that in between, that 10-footer is unbelievable. The way he does it, the way he gets it off right foot, left foot. You know, he's really developed that shot, and it's become an unbelievable weapon for him.
Kind of to piggyback off that with, Antonio possibly, potentially, hopefully being an All-American, and then Trey easily being one of the best transfers. Having 2 fifth-year guys on a UK one-and-done type of style team, what does that kind of say about this coaching staff, maybe switching things up and being able to adapt in the transfer portal area and things like that?
You know, I think Coach Cal and the staff did a great job evaluating. You know, in today's day and age where you can get kids through the portal, it could be a great advantage or a disadvantage depending on who you get. And I think they did a great job evaluating the talent, and I thought they did a great job evaluating them as people. They're great fits for who we are. They're a great fit for who Coach Cal is. And obviously their talent's starting to speak for itself.
Reed Shepherd struggled in the first half on Saturday, but was able to come back in the second half and have a huge game, and was one of the reasons you guys won Saturday. What does it say about him as a player that being a freshman, he was able to come back and get that confidence back and able to have a big game on the road?
Reed's got a mental toughness to him and a grit to him that most people are just unaware of because they're just not around him every day. And he's just, he's got that silent killer to him and resiliency to him. And you knew it was just a matter of time that he would bounce back in the second half, which he did, and made some unbelievable plays for us to help us win that game.
Talk back to Antonio for a minute. You mentioned he's a great teammate. What have you seen from him from a leadership perspective, being a fifth-year guy on a freshman dominated?
You know, sometimes when you have upperclassmen on a team, they just don't want the responsibility. They want to play, but they don't want the responsibility of winning. And Antonio, in my opinion, has taken on the responsibility of winning. Clearly, he was a pretty good shooter last year. He was one of the better guards in the SEC. So he's continued that trend, but now he's taken that responsibility of, hey, let's win. Let me help these young guys, whether it's, grabbing the young guys before practice or after practice to get some extra work in, being a little bit more vocal on the court defensively. He's been unbelievable. I can't say enough about Antonio. I think he's one of the better guards in the country.
Anything else, Chuck?
appreciate you guys.